Well, last evening we reached Wisconsin State Democratic Representative Kelda Helen. She called the prosecution of Republican senators for last night's vote.
We are outraged, and our constituents are outraged. I think anyone who takes a fair view of government believes that the highest elected officials ought to follow the law of the land. And in this case, it's very clear that they did not. They knew they didn't, and they purposefully and knowingly violated the open meetings laws. Our question is what actions can and shall we take? I mean, certainly I would expect these crimes to be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Our Attorney General, a Republican, no less, very conservative Republican, has made it part of his main platform to promote open government and our open meetings laws. And so, you know, if he practices what he preaches, he really ought to take the lead in prosecuting these guys.
That's Wisconsin Democratic Assembly member Kelda Helen. We're joined on the telephone right now by Wisconsin State Senator Chris Larson. He's one of the Democratic 14, the entire Democratic state senatorial delegation who went to Illinois so that the Republicans in the Senate would not have a quorum to vote on this anti-union bill. State Senator Chris Larson, can you tell us where you are right now and what your response is to what happened last night?
Yeah, I'm back in Illinois. I was on my way back to Madison yesterday when I first heard that they were planning on trying to jam this bill through to see if there was something to do anything. My colleagues were trying to get ready, and there's obviously no way that any of us could get there in time for us to vote, to have an input, to even read the bill, or see what they were doing. This was under the guise. We thought that we were having pretty good discussions. Obviously, Walker tried to make it seem like we were having discussions by putting out the emails, you know, showing that we had put ideas back and forth. In reality, those weren't really going anywhere, but he was trying to make it seem that way. So we figured, okay, we might have something going. So there's this blackout period where no one was able to talk to the Republicans for a couple days. And the next thing we heard, they came out of this committee, announced they were going to be jamming this bill through. And it was jaw-dropping. And this is exactly 1 month, almost to the day of when they introduced the original bill where they started talking about the stripping of workers' rights. So it seems that there's no new low that the Republicans aren't willing to go to in stripping workers' rights, attacking the middle class, going after unions, and trying to make a political point. So right now we're, you know, it's pretty staggering what they did.
And, Senator, what are the options now for you, the dissident Democratic senators? Because there are obviously several good government groups in Wisconsin who claim at least that on technical grounds that by stripping the spending portions of the bill that the Senate did not need a quorum to vote on this. What are you planning to do next in your group?
Well, there will definitely be a legal challenge. I know that the Assembly is looking at that, too, about open meetings laws and other aspects of it. So that'll be pursued. There are lawyers who are going to be looking at it. So there'll definitely be a legal challenge. But let's be clear, you know, what happened now? Because I think we can get caught up in process, and it was pretty bad. But they've done a lot of this. You know, you got to go back and remember they shut down the public hearing on this, you know, in the middle of the night while there was still hundreds of people who wanted to be heard. They shut down the debate in the Assembly after they'd heard enough and pushed for a vote with 10 seconds notice. In the middle of the night, they shut down the legislative hotline because they didn't want to hear from people anymore. And then they shut down the Capitol and locked people out because they got sick of seeing people who were telling them that this was the wrong thing to do, 60 to 70% of the people of our state. And then they did this with very little notice. They jammed a bill through without letting anybody see it. In some cases, they didn't even print it off and give it to our offices, so we knew it was in the bill when they were actually voting on it. So this is just a new low as Republicans go for a race to the bottom. And even the more moderate members who we thought would step up, instead of being a rubber stamp, and decided to end their political careers basically over this as people move from the Capitol now into the streets and onto the recall efforts against Republicans.
Senator Chris Larson, the vote was 18-1. First, there was the closed meeting with the governor, with Walker and the Republicans. He left. they continued meeting. They figured this out, and they went back into open session. 18-1, one Republican, Senator Dale Schultz of Richland Center, the only one to vote against the bill. He said in a statement, collective bargaining should be kept intact because it has preserved labor peace for decades. He said the two sides should have been able to work out a deal, and said, I've had the honor and privilege of representing folks in Southwest and South Central Wisconsin for 28 years, and where I come from, he said, compromise is not a dirty word. Can you tell us about him and the recall movement that is beginning to recall some of these senators?
Well, Senator Schultz really took a brave stand, and he, from the very beginning, he was one who was standing up and trying to put amendments forward, trying to slow this down, trying to see what could be done to try and make this bad bill a little bit better. He had some ideas of scaling it back a bit, and he had some real conversations with the Democratic senators in trying to do this. And he was getting a lot of pressure. He was getting browbeaten by the leadership over there, by Governor Walker, who wanted to have his way and didn't want people questioning him. So we thought that there was going to be other progress, and we know that there was some Senate Republicans who were considering changing, who had mentioned it back in their districts, who were feeling the pressure of these recalls and feeling the pressure of their constituents. But I think what happened is, you can remember yesterday, they were meeting in all day in caucus, in a meeting. For hours, where the governor came in. We don't know what was said in there, but we kind of have a pretty good idea based on the output. And the day before that, they were in a meeting the entire day, really pressuring these guys, really pressuring them to make sure that they voted the correct way. So I think it's amazing that Senator Schultz stood up to that and spoke out for collective bargaining. I think it's a shame that the other 18 didn't find their backbone yesterday.
Senator Larson, I wanted to ask you again, what will your group do now? I mean, do you have unanimity among yourselves? Are you going back to Wisconsin, or are you going to participate in the Senate once again?
Well, as we've said, we were committed to staying here until collective bargaining rights are preserved. Obviously now, that's taken a severe blow. So we're recentering ourselves right now and seeing what's possible, making sure we've exhausted the whole process before we make our next decision. So we'll be getting together today and going over everything and trying to figure out the next best move. Obviously, there'll be a legal challenge to this. Obviously, there's going to be a new push towards the Republican recalls, with or without us, based off of the number of people who are very upset with the process. So I think we're going to be looking at all of that and deciding what's going to be best moving forward.
State Senator Chris Larson, thanks for joining us. Democratic member of the Wisconsin Senate, is in Illinois right now with all other 13 Democratic state senators. The entire delegation has left Wisconsin, so they'll prevent a quorum from taking place in the state legislature. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report.